I think most of us would love to have an observatory that we could use to do our observations from. Now, I know that I have a pier in my backyard that I put in a number of years ago, and it's been great because I'm able to set up on it and I'm able to do my astrophotography. And sometimes I'll have a second setup that will be sitting on a tripod, be it the Lost Mandy or the EQ6R Pro, and I'll be shooting two different targets. But you know, I think most of us have a desire to have some kind of a building to house all this stuff in. An observatory, if you will. A place that we can store our stuff and just open up the roof and just begin shooting. And so today, I'm going to walk you through some of the thoughts that I have, the initial thoughts that I have regarding the build of my observatory. Hi, I'm Dave of Urban Astro, and thank you for watching my channel. Now, the first thought is, justifying, if you will, the building of an observatory. It's nothing small. It's a fairly large project, and there's a lot of planning that goes into it and a lot of thought. And I've been doing a lot of thinking and going over different options and ideas in my head. And so I kind of wanted to walk you through what some of those decision points have been and what some of my concerns have been. So the first thing, as you all well know, is that I already have a pier. So here's the pier that I've got, and she's right there. And I've yet to finish it off because I have been trying to figure out what I'm going to do with it. And essentially, the pier is located in this spot because of the views that I get from the east to the west and to the north. And I'd like to get more southerly views, but I have houses that surround me. So let me show you kind of what we're looking at here. So here's the views. Now the bougainvilleas, which you see here, these get trimmed. So right now I'm just letting them grow out because they're in flowering mode. And once they stop flowering, I'll come in here and I'll get these things trimmed down. Same thing with the yellow bells here. The yellow bells seem to be really kind of taking over. They trim down really, really easily. But you can see, here's my view to the east. And I have a neighbor next door here who runs lights on their porch right here, which lights up this part of the sky. And then if I look to the south here, I've got a house right here, and then I've got another neighbor's house right there. So I get kind of an unobstructed view right up over this way, but the object has to be fairly high in the sky. It has to be at least 45 degrees up for me to be able to shoot in the southern sky. If we look here to the west, I've got tree line right here, and I can get somewhat low, but again, we're talking maybe about 30 to 40 degrees there that I have to be concerned about to be able to shoot clearly over these trees. Then if we look here to the north, here's my house, and I get a pretty unobstructed view right through this area right here. And then I hit the house. So I can hit things like Cassiopeia and those particular, I can hit all these things. I can hit Orion. Orion comes up over this way, and Orion goes straight above me and then over to the west. And so I can hit a lot of those targets. So the location here seems to be okay. It's not the best. Again, it's my backyard, and I don't have a huge backyard, and it's an urban setting. I'm surrounded by a school over here on the west and a school over here to the east, And when they're both having games, then the sky lights up. And then I got, of course, the airport that's to the northeast. And so it just gets to be problematic. Now, there's other locations in the yard, and that's something that you're going to have to go out and do when you are thinking about building an observatory, is figuring out where are you going to put it. And you really have to look at your sight lines and figure out what objects can you shoot with the view that you have. Because once you put in the observatory, it's rather permanent. And you're not going to be able to move it much. Now, I have shifted by about 20 feet to the north here, and this was one potential location that I was looking at, but the problem is, and again, this is like evaluating your site to figure out where you can actually build this thing. So if you take a look here, so this right here is the south, right there is my pier, right there. So I'm about 20 feet away to the north. So here's my south view. So I get a little bit more view of the south right here. My view here to the east, I've got my neighbor's house right dab smack right there, and I get a pretty good view once like Orion rises above. It gets to be pretty decent, but it's not that great. To the north here, again, I get this unobstructed view right here in this area, which is okay, but it's to the west. This is the west. So let me go up here. Yeah. So I'm okay as long as the object that I'm shooting doesn't go below the roof of the house, which is probably at about 45 to 50 degree angle. So basically things have to be pretty high up in the sky for me to be able to shoot to the west. So these are kind of the considerations that you have to make when you're planning for the location of your observatory. Is where is it going to be situated at? And you have to consider all the factors. You have to consider factors like your views. You have to consider the factors of neighbors and lights that they may or may not have. Like I've already noted, my neighbor here to the east of me has porch lights that are on pretty much all night. And then the neighbor to the south of me, sometimes he likes to keep his porch lights on all night. And then if I've got schools either to the east or to the west of me, if they're both having games, they have their lights on almost all night. And of course, I've got the famous Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, which is to the northeast. So we get a nice glow from it because they light everything up over there. And really, it's not a great spot to do astrophotography, to be honest. But you know, you do what you do with what you've got and with where you're at. So that's the first thing you have to consider, is basically your site location and all the things that you have to work with in order to get, in order to figure out where to place your observatory. The second thing, at least that I'm struggling with right now, is how do I put in my observatory in terms of, do I put in a concrete pad in this area right here, which would be the floor, or do I put in kind of like a raised floor? Now, you may be wondering to yourself, why not just put in a concrete pad? Well, there's spots here in the backyard where water tends to pool, especially because of the geology of the area. Okay, let me explain. We don't get much rain here in Phoenix. And when we do get rain, it usually comes quick, and when it comes quick, it comes quick. And so the soil here, it's a very hard soil, and then beneath probably about the first, I don't know, 5 to 6 inches of soil is a hard clay layer that is called caliche. And caliche is kind of like concrete, and it takes a long time for water to permeate through that caliche, which is part of the reason why you don't see a whole lot of houses here in the Phoenix area that have basements, because you really can't put in a basement. Well, you can, but the cost would be so high. When it does rain, I tend to have water that pools. And if I put in a concrete pad, it would have to be a pretty thick pad. I generally tend to have water that likes to pool right over in here, in this area, right down in there. It's kind of like a slight low spot right there. And that would be on the edge. And I'm just afraid that I would have to end up putting in a concrete pad, which would be like 4 inches thick, 4 to 5 inches thick, in order to rise it above where some of the low spots are. And again, you know, this is all part of the calculus of figuring out your observatory build. And in my particular case, I have issues of a low spot right here in this area, which you can see these bricks right here. See, brick right there. Yeah, these bricks are kind of the outline of where my build is going to be. And so what I'm thinking of doing is that instead of putting in a concrete pad, I'm going to put a raised floor. And I'm probably going to put piers at each corner, and I'll do that, and then I'll lay my decking, if you will, my flooring on top of those piers and raise it up at least 3 to 4 inches off the ground, so that way freestanding water can flow, and I don't have to worry about intrusion into the flooring or around the walls of the observatory. Now, part of the problem we have here in Phoenix is scorpions and rattlesnakes. So if you create a nice place, a nice dark space where they can come and hang out, then it becomes an attractive location for such critters. And so I also have to architect this in such a way that I'm able to, if you will, keep such critters from occupying the same space as I am. So my next concern was how many piers. Now, I have plans, thanks to Bob Fugate, who actually put one in. He's a fellow astrophotographer that I go out and do astrophotography with here in the Phoenix area. He just finished putting in a 1-pier observatory, and it's a great building, and the plans are online, and if I remember, I'll try to see if I can link to them in the show notes down below. I wanted, and this was the debate, is I have 2 mounts. I've got my Lost Mandy G11 mount, and then I've got my EQ6R Pro, and I do mostly wide field work, and so both mounts are quite adequate for that. I will throw like my 10-inch Dob and my RC6 on my Lost Mandy because they can take the weight. And so the question is do I just do 1 pier or do I do 2 piers? And I think I'm going to do 2 piers. And here's the location of where my second pier is going to go. And right now it's being marked by, well, the bark of a palm tree, which I figured is a pretty interesting thing to use as a marker. But that will be the location of the Lost Mandy. I think I'm going to keep this pier right over here for my EQ6R Pro and make this one here the Lost Mandy, which will host the RC6 and my 10-inch Dob and any other scope that I throw on it. Which means that I cannot use the kind of plans that Bob had or had for his observatory, because it's going to be a 2-pier observatory. And so because it's going to be 2 piers, I'm going to have to extend and make the space bigger. And so right now I'm toying with the idea of basically an 8x10 spot. And it's going to be 8x10, so I can put in the 2 piers so that they don't hit each other, that I can put the large scopes that I have on them on the piers, and have enough space for storage and to move around. I don't want this thing to be small and cramped. I want there to be a little bit of space. There's not going to be, I'm not putting in like a warm room or anything like that, because, well, my house is right behind me. And so I can easily sit in my office for a warm room, and I'm able to manage what's out here. One of the decisions that I've made is how to do the roll-off roof. You know, there's a lot of ways to do roll-off roofs. And part of the problem that I have here in Phoenix, and those of you who live on the East Coast of the United States understand what this issue is, and that is high winds. And we have high winds that come through, dust storms basically, where the winds will gust up to 70, 80 miles an hour. Now, it doesn't last very long, but it does come, and when it hits pretty hard and pretty quickly. And so I'm not going to have time to go out to latch down the roof or anything like that. I need a roof that I can't just pop off. And a lot of roofs have tracks where you've got wheels and they ride on a rail. And you can use piping, or you can use actual rails and put the wheels on, and it seems like a really easy solution. The problem with that solution, though, is that it's easy to pop off a roof. And I don't want the roof to be heavy. It's not going to be a complex roof. It's going to be essentially a flat roof with a slight rise on one edge so that water can drain. But basically, it's going to be a flat roof. And so part of my concern is to keep the roof on the observatory if and when, it's not a question of if, it's really a question of when we get a windstorm. So I saw that Nebula Photos had just recently done an observatory where he used garage rails. And garage rails are really kind of interesting in that they have wheels that lock into a rail system that keeps everything locked together. And I'm thinking that that's probably what I'm going to end up doing, is I'll end up using something like that. So that way I don't have to worry about the wind concerns. So that's kind of my thinking on the observatory at this point. Anyways, this has been a long ramble of me saying, I don't know, maybe not that much, but for me, I just kind of wanted to walk you all through my thinking and the process. Once I have those things figured out, basically once I think I'm pretty much going to do the raised floor. I think I've got that settled. The question now is the height of the roof. And once I get that question resolved, then I go right into the building process. And one of the things I have to do before I do much of anything is to put in the second pier, as well as the piers, which the observatory structure is going to sit on, so that way I can tie it down so that it will be safe and secure when we do get these windstorms that come through. And so, yeah, so I hope you found some of this to be interesting, at least giving you some food for thought, because many of you are probably thinking about doing an observatory, and I just wanted to walk you through some of the things that I've been thinking about and struggling with and trying to figure out how to work around. And so, yeah, so I hope you found this interesting. I hope you found it helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below, or any comments. If there's something that I'm forgetting or overlooking, I would greatly appreciate your feedback. And if you enjoy content like this, because this summer is going to be the summer of building the observatory, so that's what the videos are going to be pretty much here on out, with occasional videos of other things. But if you want to stay tuned and watch the progress, then please like this video and subscribe down below, and we'll talk with you next time. Clear skies and happy guiding.